Just a sound check here if it's working. Okay. Give me 2 minutes. Okay, you should be able to hear me now and see me here in a second. Okay. Sorry about that short delay. We should be good to go right now. As long as everyone can hear me just fine, classical technical check. Okie dokie, so let's see here. Everything working. Just gonna check the slides going forward. And that's not working. So that's why you double check, guys. We'll just do the whole. Sorry about that. It's not updating when I change the slide. We're just gonna do the old-fashioned way of sharing the whole monitor. And that's working. Yes. Great. Okay, so it's a little bit unfortunate here, guys. I apologize in advance. I need to take a very quick break because I have a late package arriving that for some reason is 6 hours late. So I will need to just go check on my door quickly, very quickly, I promise you. But we're here today to speak about a little bit about how to market video games. So I'm Pontus. I work with GTR as a director of business development and also for a company called G-Route. So a little bit about me first before we get started is that I have a background of about 10 years of experience in several different parts of the gaming industry. I started very early as a professional gamer and game development consultant. So in the beginning, I worked with a company called S2 Games, which is an American company in Kalamazoo, which developed a game called Heroes of New York. So my first kind of experience within the gaming industry was working as a volunteer for S2 Games. So I was something called a super beta tester, which basically included just, coming on like on calls and, being on a forum and just discussing. And I can see here that Microsoft Teams is coming up discussing. And then eventually that kind of led into a more robust position when I had regular weekly calls with the developers. And ultimately, simultaneously on the side, it turns out that I was actually pretty good at the game. So I ended up becoming a professional gamer, which means I played video games full time for a living. and I also did some consulting on the side for various video games. This position also led me to work with Garena and Tencent. So if you Google my name, you can see a lot of videos and educationals I've done within the gaming industry on the whole influencer side. I really need to mute this. I apologize. This is the work from home. Okay, just gonna turn off my Teams. Apologies for that. Okay, we are back. So there you go. No more disturbing people coming in and asking. But yeah, so I ended up working with Garena and Tencent, which eventually brought me to Thailand. And after I joined Thailand, I've been part of various companies on the board. I also worked with the biggest telecom here in Thailand called AIS, or the holding company is called Singtel in Singapore. So I've been a little bit all over the place. I've been a pro gamer, been an influencer. I was a consultant for game development studios and business development for multiple companies. And ultimately, that landed me here today, which is Global Top Round. So I actually worked for a Thai company called Neolution Esport with their esport department, where I grew the team to 87 people of various influencers and athletes. And after that, shortly after, I basically met the Global Top Round guys in Japan. And I absolutely fell in love with what it is that we do as a company. And for me, it was a very easy transition to, just leave back my old consulting life and start working in our startup, which is something that I think is incredible. Oh, okay, there we go. So, seriously, are you gonna start? Okay, there we go. So basically, we are an investor slash accelerator called Global Top Round, which is originally out of Korea, but we have a global approach to the entire situation. We have offices here in Thailand, which is my office. We have an office in Korea, an office in US, an office in Singapore. So we basically have our company spread out between multiple countries. And that is, of course, for several reasons. Gaming is a global market, and also there is tons of availability and talented developers in any single country. Whether or not you come from a big background or you're just straight out of college, being able to create something nowadays is very easy. All you really need is a computer in order for you to actually come up with some really awesome concept, which you can then bring to market. So we started about 5 years ago. We have done over 40 investments so far in 27 countries. So as I said, we have a very global approach. And what we do in comparison to a lot of other investors and accelerators is that we actually tend to become a business partner of yourself and like an extension of your company. We're not a company that gives money and then basically like stands aside as a silent investor or as an active investor. Basically, we are just a business partner, and I'm going to get more into that. But first of all, what we do is that I do a lot of these talks. So I speak at a lot of conferences and a lot of events. We try to spread knowledge as much as we can in many various ways, sometimes not even about ourselves. So I've done a lot of talks on different events about influencer marketing and other types of approaches where, we can add some value to developers. That's really what we want to do. And on top of that, of course, we are actually at these offline events themselves, which means we get to see a lot of developers in person. We get to talk to you, enjoy your company and like listen to your stories. And ultimately, this aggregates into a lot of studios that wants to work with us. And what happens is that we aggregate all of these people that we meet over the year, and we combine them into one thing that we call the GTR Annual Conference. The GTR Annual Conference is basically the highlight event or the main event of what we do, where all the developers come together with our publishing partners, with our investment partners, and we try to figure out what the best titles for that year is. So last year we had 309 companies applying to us from 48 different countries. So we really have been able to, spread our wings, so to speak, in a lot of different countries. It all leads up to the final 20. So once we have all of these 300 or 400 or 200, we bring it down to the top 20, which we will then invite you to the offline event that we hold and also cover your flight and hotel. So we have travel support up to 2,000 USD. And once you arrive to the event, the entire purpose is for you to pitch, tell us about your story, tell us about your game, the company, so that, we can figure out if this is something that's going to be working between us. And at this event itself, it's basically a 2-day event only. It's a very short, where the first day is you pitching the game, pitching your company in front of all of us, of course, but also government partners that we work with, as well as 30 to 60 investors and publishers, which means all these people that you as developers, when you're traveling around the world or now digitally, that you actually try to contact, they will be there in person. But instead of having 500 meetings or getting 100 business cards, they are only there to listen to 20 of you. So this is a way for you to get like really good exposure in front of like 30 to 60 publishers and investors. So even if you don't get our investment, you still have expanded your network a lot. And that's kind of what we want to do. And this event itself is also in a different country every single year. And I can see here that my slide says Montreal 2020, but it's actually in Malta. So we're going to be going to Malta this year in January, and our applications are actually open right now. So at globaltopround.com, if you're an indie developer or a smaller studio that are looking for investments and business partners, this is available for you right now. If you get picked as the top 20, we're going to be flying you out to Malta. Now, after this event itself, you've been there for 2 days, you presented your project. At the end of the second day, we pick the final top 10. These are, of course, the best studios in our opinion, with the most chance of success, that we believe we're going to have a long-lasting relationship with. And after we pick those, we fly out to you, we meet your team, we meet your office, and if, of course, you are a remote office, then that's okay, and we'll still fly out to meet you, the founder, and maybe your co-founder. So for us, it's still important, of course, to meet the team as early as we can. If everything goes really well there, then we will invest in your company, and we will take an equity portion. So what we actually provide for all of our studios, just to mention that very quickly, I mentioned that we're business partners. So we do something a little bit different than a lot of other companies. So once you've received our equity investment, we become a part of you, which means that, we kind of become like, a co-CEO, co-CFO, whatever you want to call us. It depends on what your studio needs. And we come in and we take over like the business side of your company, which means you as the creator, and usually a smaller business, will be able to focus on what you're good at, which is content creation. So this means that we help you with due diligence, building up your company, figuring out your business plan, but also setting up a growth strategy and your milestones. And I try to figure out what's wrong and how we can help you solve them. On top of this, we also do all your negotiations. We do your pitches, which means, direct access to big publishers, big investors that, you want to pitch to. We have a direct line to these guys, meaning that we can come in, pitch the project on your behalf, and make sure, it gets pitched in the right way. And then once there is a deal, you can then sign it. So it's important to know that we do not take control of your business. We're not a majority investor, and we will never sign on your behalf. You will be signing the agreement by yourself. So it's never going to be us doing it for you. We can also help you, of course, with game development and then, fundraising and publishing. So fundraising includes, raising money from angels, raising money from VCs. We have an extensive network. So once your company is ready for that, we will invite you. You will have access to us 24/7 on Discord, which means you have access to me as well as my other colleagues if you need some sort of help or strategy assistance so that we can, help your company grow. And that is on a 24/7 basis. And you will also have access to all of our previous investments and all of our future investments. So you guys can get a hang of each other. You can help each other out, teach each other things that you've learned, etc. And finally, we will have a follow-up workshop where we basically invite all of you to a second event 3 to 6 months later, where we catch up, see what's been going on, have a couple of speaker sessions, and then we move on from there and continue to grow your business. So 1 second here. Sorry about that. So let's dig into what we're here to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit broadly about several topics. We're not going to dive deep. I just want you guys to get like a more broad understanding of what you need to think about. And if you want to talk more deeply later on, about certain topics, you can always reach out to me. So you made a great game. Now what, right? Like number one question that you have is, how are you going to be marketing your game? And for me, the even more important question is, who will you market your game to? And how will you find a great publishing partner? Or if you're going to be self-publishing, how will you secure funding to sustain your game? These are all great questions that you need to have prepared by the time you come and pitch to me or any other third party. And what's really good, which we're going to dig into, I believe, in the next slide, the next slide, is why do you want to work with us in particular? Because there are a lot of VCs, a lot of accelerators, a lot of publishing partners out there, but you stick out from the crowd when you kind of make a more personal connection to these partners that you want to be working with. So we're going to dig into those points a little bit more on the next slide after this one, but think about it from the publisher and the investor side, right? it's really hard for them to have any type of data to back up their decisions. So that means, like even though I look at your game and I think it looks amazing, I might even love playing it, what is to say that your game is actually going to be a success? There are 9,000 games being released on Steam in 2019. This year, who knows? People are home at COVID and they have extra time and they're working from home. Can you guys guess how many games there will be? A frick ton. So you need to stand out from the crowd. And without having proper data to do so, it's very hard for us to actually, make a decision. And we take a lot of risks, when we go into a project or when we go into a company, all we can see is the overhead of what you're doing. And maybe like a demo and like a vertical slice or similar, but we can't really see, everything that's going on within your brain. Like that's never going to be possible, like on a first like note basis. So it's important that you make a deck that, can catch our eye very quickly. A lot of people think that, we enjoy 30, 40, 50, 60 pages of slides. We don't. We get over like hundreds and hundreds of pitches. Some of the bigger companies gets thousands. We need to see what you're trying to create in like 10 pages. If you catch my attention in the 10 pages, we can keep talking and you can send me more information. But I do not need an entire booklet about what you're doing. I don't have time to read that, and neither do other people who are much bigger than we are. And also, and this is something that a lot of people don't think about, is that markets are very different. Like what works in one country might actually not work in another. Because when a person comes to me and they give me a slide that says that the global gaming market is 300 whatever billion dollars per year, I'm like, okay, cool. I think everybody knows that gaming is one of the biggest industries in the world and that it's massive. But what does that have to do with anything? What is actually important in that slide is that which part of this giant batch of billions of dollars are you going to be catching? And why are you going to be catching it? That is actually the most important question. So when you come with a pitch that includes general slides about the market and like how big it is, how many gamers there are, that is completely irrelevant. It's about a matter of how much of it are you going to catch, why are you going to be catching them, and how. How and why are kind of connected, right? But who are you making the game for? This is something you should be thinking about even before you develop your prototype, because you can't just throw a game together and make another Metroidvania or make another FPS. You got to stick out from the crowd, right? But the beautiful thing is that the gaming market is so large nowadays that there is room for everyone. It's just a matter of finding the right market for your game, your type of genre, or your type of art style. And we all are very different people, and we all have different opinions. So before you create your prototype, or now when you're listening to this, think about who you're going to be selling this game to. Don't just say all Americans age 13 to 35 that are on PlayStation. That doesn't work. You need to tell us how and why. That is like a really important thing for both publishers and investors. And on the gamer's perspective, they are always looking for the next big game or the next small game that they're really going to fall in love with. And there are so many games for them to play, and they barely get any rewards, right? And rewards is something that I'm sure all of you are aware of how intoxicating that is nowadays. The mobile gaming market are experts at bringing people in, creating multitude of ads, doing daily rewards, weekly rewards, achievements. Gamification is kind of like all over the place. And that is something that, us as indie developers or indie investors, we don't really have those resources to actually push that out and give that kind of gamification system that the players want. So we need to be a little bit more creative. We need to think about how do we involve our gamers early, and how can we make sure that they feel close, accustomed, and can help us make a better game. So to go back to this one right here, how are you going to be marketing your game, and like how you're going to be putting this into a deck is quite simple. How do you actually build a compelling case, right? For people like me and other publishers. Very good question. And actually, it isn't as hard as you think. Again, not 30 pages, not 60 pages. You can sell a meeting and get a meeting in 10 or 12 pages without an issue. The most important thing is, what are you selling? Is it a product or is it the company? Because sometimes you guys don't know the difference. And it's really important that you do know the difference. If you come to an investor, you need to sell the game and the company. Because, if you want my money, then okay, sorry. There are two types of investors. There's project funding, of course, and there is equity. So it could be both. But the point is here that the pitch needs to be very clear about what it is you're looking for. Are you looking for money for your game, or are you looking for money for your company? And that will then adapt your rest of your pitch deck. For most companies, I always tell them that it's good to have two decks. It's good to have one investment deck, which is either for equity or project funding, or both, if that's what you're looking for, and one general deck that you want for publishers. Because in these 10 to 12 slides, you need to include what are you looking for and how much are you looking for and what are you going to spend it on. That is something that is very important. So start by including, the company in the background. And even if you're doing a pitch deck for a publisher, you should still talk about your company and the background of you and your teammates. Have you guys delivered any games before? Have you outsourced any other type of games? Have you worked in the industry? We want to know more about you. The beauty about us is that our investment strategy is very different. We focus primarily on your content because we are pre-seed investors. So we come in very early, usually as one of the first people in the company. And for us, it's more important that you have a good game. But even that, anything that can help about your background is going to help our decision, but it will definitely be important for the bigger boys. So what have you been doing in your career? You don't need to include your entire education history, simply what you have been doing in the gaming industry, right? And that should be on all the important core members of your team. You do not need to put in all 20 or 30 or 50 members, but you should be including the core team and then maybe some side information on what your other employees have been working on. Or if you're going to be hiring them after you receive our money, what positions are you going to be hiring? That's kind of part of the same. So after you've included the company and the background, of course, it's really important that you include, the game itself, right? What is the game? What is the genre? Why is it unique? What is it going to make it different from every other pitch that I'm reading? And that goes back into the previous slide two slides ago. Is who are you marketing this game to? I actually, again, don't care too much about, age 18 to 35 in the US. I care about maybe you want to target 1% of America because you have a game that fits this particular niche. That is much more interesting to me. So we would like to know, you created this game with a certain type of people and mindset in mind, and you're going to be releasing it to them and it's going to be successful because. That is the kind of story that we want to hear. And if it really is a very generic game, such as PUBG, or maybe you're creating like a similar game to a Battle Royale or something, then why not include what makes you different from them? Because if you're just creating another PUBG clone, you're never going to succeed, right? You're not going to be able to break out and beat their marketing budget. So instead, what I say is that what are the small things that makes you unique? What is going to be like a unique selling point for you, or a USP as they call it? But what's more important is that how does this USP tie into the target market that you're targeting? Because there are room for games that, can succeed in certain markets. I'll give you a great example. So a game called Free Fire, some of you might have never heard of it. It's a mobile game by Garena. When they launched originally, they weren't super successful. Like outside of like Southeast Asia, they were not that successful. However, after actually launching it in Latin America, it suddenly got a massive amount of success and now is one of the biggest games in the world. Do you think Arena knew about that? No. They were not aware that Latin America was going to be their biggest market ever. But it's something that happens because it's a game that fits the kind of market, it fits all the phones, it just had like all the right targeting in the world. An FPS battle royale that people want to play that are playable on the least expensive phones, I'll put it in those words. And it was kind of like a perfect fit for the market. So that's the kind of research that we want to see. Like if you're creating a good mobile game with like lower graphics, why? Because you want to target the lower end phones in these particular countries. Include that. It's super important. Investment. How much money do you need again? Like what type of money are we talking about? And is it equity? Is it project funding? What is the money going to be going towards? And this is something that ties into the last bullet point here in the pitch deck is like the partners, why we should work with you. So if you're looking for project funding, why in particular do you want to work with, for example, Kowloon Knights or Triple Dragon? And if you're coming to us, why do you want to work with us? That is always like an extra really cool thing for us to read. It can be 2 appendix slides, which basically explains why you think GTR is a good partner, or why you think Kowloon Knights is a good partner, or Tencent, or whoever you're working with. That is a really good thing to have in the end, but it kind of ties into the investment. Because if you're asking for example, $350,000 for development and $150,000 for marketing, You can say in your actual pitch that that 150K, you want that from them for them to take care of because you believe in their marketing capabilities for your particular type of genre. For example, you might have a game that Raw Fury thinks is amazing, so you're pitching to Raw Fury because you know that they can release these games, you know that they're going to do a good job, and that's super crucial. So try to keep in mind that when you're making that pitch deck, not only how much money you're raising or what you're going to spend it on, also why it's a perfect timing to take it from me or from another VC or from another publisher. Such as, for example, you want equity investments from Enlight Ventures, a big VC, because you want them to help you with the next Series A and connect you to more financial institutions. It can be any reason. We just want to know a little bit why you're picking us as an investor. Of course, this is for a private pitch. For your general pitch that's open, just state about how much money you want, what you're going to be spending it on, and how you're going to grow it. The roadmap, and the roadmap ties into the future. Where are you right now? When did you start your company? And where are you going to be finishing? What is your finish line, right? That is something that a lot of companies also forget. It's like now you've been in development for, let's say, 5 years, and you're going to be developing your current IP for another three. After that, what? Especially if you're coming to someone like me or an investor, we want to know what comes next because we're coming in to work with you over the long term. If you don't know what's coming next, whether it's a success or not, then how can we, believe in you and actually put our money to it? So for us, make sure that always think about including your roadmap from before until the next, let's say 5 years, 3 to 5 years. At the end of the day, you're making a projection or a forecast. You don't know how successful your game is going to be. But we want to kind of get an idea of what you're thinking. That's something that's very important. Now, supporting data. Have you actually had any community playtests? The niche part I already covered already, but is it a niche genre? If so, include it. If so, include why they're going to be liking your game, that particular one, and what is the demographic. And these three things kind of tie into my previous point. It's about if you can come to us with a slide that says that you tested this with 500 people with a certain age from a certain country, and we can see like actual qualitative feedback from this, that will help your pitch a lot. And even 500 Twitter followers or 1,000 Facebook followers, stuff like this is also super important. So even no matter how small your social media following is, let us know. Show us your numbers, show us your play test. It can be 20 testers. We want to see what people think about your game that isn't just you or friends or family. And finally, in your pitch, make sure you include what is the future of your company. What do you want to build it into? This can be in the appendix, does not have to be in a 10-page slide. Are you going to be building multiple titles? You're going to have several IPs, or are you an IP company that are going to focus on one? And if so, what happens if it fails? What's your backup plan? These are all very important bullet points that you have to think about when you're creating your pitch. And if you would like to, you can email me after this pitch and I can send you a sample deck you can take a look at and I can give you some advice about how you should be pitching. But yeah, we're not going to dive deep into every point today because, again, I just want to make sure we do like a broad overview. Okay, so speaking about games that you cannot really predict, it is kind of in today's climate almost impossible to predict if a game is going to be successful or not in some way, especially in indie, especially in in companies with less budget. I wouldn't say it's impossible, of course, but I would say that it's very hard to say it's going to sell X amount of copies. At the end of the day, we're all just sitting here coming up with a forecast or making random projections. It's really hard for us to guess, right? And it's really hard to pinpoint, what markets and countries. So I talked about that, I want to try to understand you and who you're targeting, but it might actually be an issue. You might not know who's going to be liking your game because you didn't think about it earlier and you don't know how to do it now. That's something that we're going to try to fix with our company. But generally, it is very hard, which is why we always recommend to build a community very early. Arena of Valor is a great example. It's called Honor of Kings in China. It's called Strike of Kings in NAEU. And basically, this game is the biggest game in Southeast Asia. So I live in Thailand, in Bangkok. If I go outside now and I go to like 7-Eleven or something at 10:30 p.m., which it is right now, I guarantee you I'll see someone playing this game. That's how crazy it is. People play this everywhere, and I believe there's 60 million people in Thailand, and there's 42 million registered people in this game. That's absolutely crazy. And the point is that this game utterly failed in NAEU. So they tried to launch this game in North America and Europe, and it actually failed. They shut it down, I think, 4 or 5 months ago. While in China, it's the biggest grossing game in the market, I believe, after Crossfire, and they've made billions of dollars, I believe, out of this game already. And right now, it's making tons of money in Southeast Asia too. So this is a great example of a title which, looked amazing in one country, but ended up being really bad in another one because we are all different people out of different cultures. And at the end of the day, you only need to grab, 1% of one audience or one country. 1% is a lot, but the point stays that you do not need to target global. You need to find that market that fits your game. Like Arena of Valor, Southeast Asia is perfect. It fits on every phone. People love to play it. It's kind of like the art style is perfect here. It's a MOBA game, which is a very popular genre. But in NAEU, we play PC console. We don't play a lot of mobile games, at least not these types of mobile games. So when should you actually start building this community? So for us, or what we recommend anyway, is that you should be building this community very early. And a lot of you might think, but maybe you don't have any money, or maybe you don't have a network. Well, that's totally fine because at the end of the day, you got friends and family, I assume. And if you don't, you have Reddit, you have Twitter, you have Facebook. Like, we're in a world today where you are incredibly connected to everyone and everything, kind of, where you can post anything anywhere in most cases. So the point is that when you're in that concept phase and you've started actually developing something or creating an art or making like a wallpaper or doing something of value, you can post that somewhere. You can go on like Screenshot Saturday in the Facebook indie game dev group. You can go to Reddit on the indie game dev. There are so many places for you to post. So we think that, after you've done the concept and a prototype, you start testing it. You start throwing out some flyers, spreading this in some different types of forums to get like an initial feel of what people think. Now, after you have an MVP or a pre-production, that's when you should really be focusing on actually building something up. Even 100 people will be really, really valuable because these people will be free testers for you. If someone likes what you're creating or they like your art style or your game genre, they are going to stay there with you, listen to you, watch everything that you're doing, and, grow with you. So do it. What I always say is that you have friends or family and you have like random people on the internet, spread what you're doing. Let people know. Invite them to a Discord and establish communication. Establish a brand or establish a personality or a character which people can connect to. Once you have that, you can test ideas, you can take your concept and your art style, you can show it to people, and you can get a second opinion. Because something a lot of very single developers or double developers do is that they are too much in their own bubble that they forget to ask the outside. They might think they've created like the best game ever. In reality, you've created something that you love and that some of your friends love, but maybe not the mass market who's going to be eventually buying your game, right? Once you started with your alpha, your beta, and you go all the way up to your gold master on your launch, it's going to be a continuous process. I recommend posting something at least weekly, maybe even every third day or something, where you always keep your fans up to date. And personally, I always recommend Discord. I think it's the best tool to use. And again, guys, this is something you're going to be using in your pitch. When you come to me, you can show me all this feedback. You can show me your social channels. You can show me your Reddit posts. I got thousands of thumbs up. It's your assets, It's not just your pitch and you and the content you've created. It's like, what do other people think about it? Because at the end of the day, creating a game is a business. It's a product. It's something that you need to sell in order to make a successful company. So you need to show us that you can do so. So start early. Start very early and show us what you're capable of. Now, speaking of how to approach gamers, we have several different types of platforms nowadays, as I mentioned. Again, I recommend Discord. I think it's the perfect funnel. If you're unfamiliar with the word funnel, it's I'll put it simply. You want to use Discord as your main platform, and you want to use everything else to funnel into Discord. What that means is that when you create something on Twitter, you create something on Reddit or on Facebook, the call to action or the link or where you send people should always be towards your Discord or your Twitter. Again, it's up to you which platform you actually choose, but we recommend Discord because it's a great way to stay up to date 24/7. Very easy to get in contact with people, and yeah, it's just good. So when you start posting your art style on Twitter, always tag your game, always tag your characters, include a link to your Discord if that's where you want to funnel them to. And the same thing goes for Reddit. And you'll slowly build it up. Again, like even 20 people will be helpful for you to just try to understand your project more. So you start by making a schedule, make a simple content management plan. There are free tools out there. You can use something called Notion that we use in our company, Notion.so, or you can use, spreadsheet, freaking Excel. or a Google spreadsheet, and just make a plan for yourself. How many times per week are you going to be posting? Is it going to be on Twitter, Reddit, Facebook? How are you going to cross post it? How are you going to co-promote it? Are you going to tag people? Google some hashtags, Go, tag some big accounts, get your name out there. We really recommend doing so. It's a great way to start building up a smaller community, which you can grow over time. And finally, of course, what I'm here to talk about today is what we're trying to build over at GRound. So we have started building a tool, which is basically a marketing tool that's designed to aid studios to test in different countries and try to figure out, what is your target market. All these issues I've been bringing up in this deck here is something that, we also realized. We saw all of this and we were like, yeah, we're an investor. We invest in a lot of companies. We have access to a lot of people. But ultimately, no matter how smart you think you are or how big of a network you have, ultimately it's the customer that decides the success of your game. So we wanted to create a tool where people like yourself, whether you're small, medium, or large, can try to find that target market even before you've launched your game. So our product's called GRound or GameRound.co, and what it is, it's basically a global community. It's a place where people can upload their games. Well, first of all, you have to send us your pitch deck, of course, and your game build, and we can have a chat. And if you pass through it and you're on the service, you'll basically look like this. It's live right now, so you can actually see it online. Currently, these games have already been tested. But users can come to the platform and see all these different types of games, the genres. They will also be able to see more about you as a company and what you're doing and what you're developing. And you can use this type of feedback for your investments in your publishers, which we're going to dig into. So the 4 things that we're focusing on is number 1, helping you find that global community. Because in the beginning, before you have money, before you have a build that's ready to come to us, you're in the dark. You're just posting everywhere trying to get some attention. We want to try to help you find that one community or one country which is really good and is befitting of you and your title. So that's something that we want to do as number 1. Second of all, we want to, of course, give you feedback. We want to give you local feedback, reviews, and surveys where people can answer and help you try, kind of improve the game, but also help you understand why certain target markets like your game and why other countries don't. That's really important. Thirdly, we have an SDK which tracks all the custom in-game events within your game, which means that if you want to track levels, items, characters, we can do that for you. But the most important thing, which is why we created the product, is we want to help you identify the target market. Again, that's the most crucial thing of any product, but more importantly in games, which countries or which types of people or which cultures will ultimately like your game. That's something that we want to try to figure out. So we do this by, of course, again, uploading the game on our website, giving it access to our whole customer base, user base, as well as some partner influencers that we work with. These influencers are not on the platform. They're not paid. They're not a marketing type of deal. They are there to give you unbiased feedback. So we partnered with them in a way where they also get access to the games that you have, like they get access to your game, but they are not forced to say anything, which means that they're going to play your game with real reactions, with real feedback, and actually tell you what they properly think. And that's very different from, you going and hiring an influencer to say A, B, C, and D. We wanted these influencers to be part of the product and kind of help you in both a positive and a negative way. It might just be that they don't agree with certain things that you're doing, and we want to kind of try to help figure that out. So on top of the influencers actually playing your game, we of course want to figure out, how many installs you have, how many people are reviewing your game, what's the retention, how positive are the reviews. That's of course very basic, and that's what we do for all the games as well. Now, once you have all of these data, you have the play testing. Let's say you got 3,000 play testers from different countries. You have data now. You know that, for example, your top country here is India. You know that they really like your game. The surveys were really good. What are you going to do with this, right? I talked about earlier that when you come to us as an investor, as a global top round, I want you to project. I want you to foresee or forecast where you're going to be successful or how your product is going to do in different markets. But now you actually have the data to prove so. You can actually come to me and show it to me. That's what, why we wanted to create this product, because not only do we want to help you figure out, your target markets, we want you to be able to use it to find deals. We want you to come onto our platform and 3 months later sign a deal with, Nexon or Makers Fund or Lion Games, whoever you actually want to work with. That's the ultimate goal, get you more money so you can grow your business. That's why we created the company. So you come to them and you say, I had 3,000 testers, let's say 700 per region. And you tell them that it was very obvious to me that, India and Japan were my top countries. So now what you can do with this data is you can do several things. Number one, if you want to actually self-publish your game, why not take it to a Japanese publisher? Because you probably cannot self-publish in Japan. Show them the data that Japanese people really like the game, and now you can license your game to Japan only, which means you can get some minimum guarantees, you can get some cash, you have localization, you have them taking care of you. That's awesome, right? Then you can use the rest of the world and self-publish yourself. Or if you are one of those companies that do wants to find a global publisher, take all this data and prove to them that, oh, India, US, Japan, Canada, Turkey, they love your game. Let's take a look at it and let's sign something globally. So you take all of this that we're getting to you and you present it to publishers and you sign a deal. Now, if you don't have our platform, you're doing it yourself. Again, this is where building up a community is very important. You should still be coming with this data and showing it to us, no matter how small. It doesn't matter. You guys, some of you guys might think that coming to me with 30 testers is bad. No, 0 is worse than 30. You should be showing us those 30 and what those 30 people thought. Yeah, we can't get like a complete overview about how successful you're going to be, but we can at least give like a baseline of, okay, this is what these 30 people think. Always present as much data as you have as possible. So the way the platform works in its simplicity is that you come to us again, you show us your pitch deck and your game, and once we've taken a look at it, we say that this is a game, this is a go, and we basically come to an agreement whether or not what type of service that you want. Do you want to focus on getting wish list for your game? Do you want to focus on building an audience in certain communities? Do you want to test your MVP? We're able to kind of customize and tailor to what it is that you need in order to make, give you the best kind of KPIs for what your purpose is. So we can actually go with a build as early as an MVP, or we can do it 3 months before launch because you only need marketing data. So it really depends on what you need. Now, we do have some promotion packages right now and even some free slots every now and then. So if you are in the developer, you don't have money, don't worry. If your game is awesome, we can still consider it. Again, we have an investment company on the side as well, of course, like the Global Top Round. So you can always reach out to me and ask me stuff about GTR. But for G Round, same thing there. We do run some promotions every now and then. But ultimately, the first 2 weeks, you have a 2-week process where you have a global review where every single person that plays your game will be able to answer a very super quick 1 to 2 minute review. After that, you get like a very good score. You get to understand like what kind of countries actually likes your game. And the following 2 weeks will be a global survey where you can now answer more in-depth questions to several countries to try and understand more about why certain countries like your game more than others. Now, after that initial 4 weeks period, you're going to do a final 2 weeks localized period, which means that you pick your top country. You talk to these people directly one-on-one, which of course means that, let's say that Korea is your number 1 country, which you had no idea about, will open like a private 2-week test where you can speak to Koreans only. So you can talk to them, negotiate with them, try to understand like what kind of culture, art style, etc. that they have. So you can make sure that you maximize your revenue in that list. Because again, at the end of the day, video game is a business. So trying to maximize revenue is the goal, while creating something wonderful that people can love and be entertained by for a long period of time. And ultimately, as we talked about in the last slide, you take all of this, all the data that we give you, and you figure out how you want to go to market. Do you want to get a publisher? Do you want to get an investment? Do you want to just like use it all in marketing in the countries that we chose? That's completely up to you. So ultimately, G-Round is a platform that basically provides a solution for you to pinpoint and identify your target market. It's about finding out whether or not your MVP is a good enough product, whether or not your game build has potential and can become something proper, and build into something larger. And that's really like what we want to be doing with G-Round. And also, we want to save you money. A lot of you guys don't have tons of money in your company, but you still go to GDC, you still go to all these big expensive events, and you pay a lot of money for booths. Sometimes you're lucky enough to get a free indie booth, but ultimately, it's a lot of money to travel. We want you to be able to do all of this from the comfort of your home, completely locally, and then you can reach out and email to the publishers and the investors. That's what we're trying to create. That's how we believe we'll be able to change the game and actually help people how to market video games. How do you actually use a tool like this to figure out where to market and take your company to the next step? That is basically what we want to do with this company. So in terms of G Round, you can find us on Game Round Co or G Round Community on Facebook or bit.ly/G Round Discord. But I'm not sure what kind of audience is listening right now. I can see that we have a couple of viewers in the Twitch chat. My voice today, I've had a lot of meetings, so I'm sorry. It's 11 p.m. here and voice is dying. But what would you guys like to know more? If there are any questions that you guys have, it could be relation to investment, publishing, in relation to the service. You can pretty much ask it in the chat. I was told I had 40 minutes to speak, so we've just now wrapped up 40 minutes. So we have about 15 minutes if there are any questions or anything you want me to dig in deeper on. So again, I can go back to the investment slides if you guys want to discuss that, or if there are any questions in regards to GTR, or again GRAN. Then you can just type in a Twitch chat. Let me open up the browser. Let's see here. Okie dokie. I have the Twitch chat up right now. All right, that's me typing in the chat. Zlapt is my old gamer name. But if there's anyone that has any questions in relations to investments or publishing or anything of the sort, do feel free to ask. Or if you want to talk a little bit more about the marketing slides or the pitch deck slides, I can go into more detail. I wasn't sure how many people to expect, so I only prepared a 40-minute pitch, 40-minute talk, sorry. Oops, that's my WhatsApp on stream. Whoopsie daisy. I know that there is like a 10-minute follower cooldown on IGDA, so that if you're not a follower, you can't type a question as well. So I'm not sure if there are anyone who wants to ask something, but if not, that's completely cool as well. I'll give it another 30 to 60 seconds. Otherwise, we'll end it early here today. We only did like again a very quick one. Nope. Second. Okay, any final questions? We're gonna shut down here. Let me know in the chat. Otherwise, you can also find me on LinkedIn. It's Pontus Mähler. I'll go back to. Oh, I lost a part of your presentation. Will we be able to access that slide? Sure, Jefferson Carvalho. Sorry for mispronunciation. Sure, I can send this to you. I need to update it. Just 2 slides, but yeah, no problem at all. I mean, this is I've done this session now in 3 different events. It's one of the most popular sessions that we have, so it's something that I've done several times. Again, it's more of like a broad overview of the industry, right? And if you want to dig deeper, then I have other speaker sessions for that I can share with you. But yeah, you can just email me pontus@globaltopround.com. I'll type it in the Twitch chat, and I can send you the slides tomorrow. It's very late here, and today is PG Connects Helsinki, so I've been having meetings all day, so my voice is like dying. Anyone else that has any question? If I knew I had more time, I would have kept talking. All right, we'll give it another 30 seconds again. Okay, so it looks like the chat today, I'm not sure if there is a follower delay or whatever, but even if there is, I wrote my email in the chat, so Today, again, was just a quick overview over how to market your video game properly, what to think about when you're designing a pitch deck, what to think about, what type of information that you're presenting to people like ourselves or publishers or investors in a broad perspective. If you want to know more in detail, again, feel free to email me. If not, there are tons of really good uh, articles out there. For example, Raw Fury is very good at creating their draft pitch decks you can take a look at. I really like that they do so. I don't necessarily agree with their decks, but it is a great start. It is a great start. Everyone likes to be pitched differently, but I do believe that Raw Fury's sample deck is a very good thing. But I do hope that you guys got some information about how to develop a better pitch deck, what data to include, and what's important, especially when you pitch to someone like myself or a publisher or similar. There are a lot of things that you got to think about. It's not just as easy as putting together a PowerPoint and sending it over. That's not how it works. And I do have to say that I believe offline events have been much better than the digital ones recently. Personally, I haven't seen as much quality online. So do remember that even though these events are free digitally and there's a lot of accessibility, bring us your best, man. Show us your best pitch deck, your best game. Show us what you're capable of. And that's something that you've really got to consider, because we put in a lot of time and effort to review your projects, and we expect you to do the same. And the quality has been a little bit lower here on the digital events. Try to not be one of those people. So yeah, all right, guys. I guess that is enough for me. Again, you want the access to the pitch deck, email me. You have questions, email me, or you can find me on LinkedIn. If you're looking for an investor, then we are currently accepting applications at globaltopround.com, where we invest in 10 companies per year. There's about 2 weeks left for you to apply. So if you have a game build ready, you have a deck, reach out to us. Same thing goes for G Round. You want to get your game tested, you want to try out our tool, send us an email, contact us, let us know. Otherwise, thank you very much, IGDA, for inviting me. Again, it was a short webinar, but I appreciate it. It was very nice coming in here and talking to a different audience. And yeah, maybe I'll be back in the future and we'll dig more in depth on a specific topic. Yeah, thank you guys, and see you next time.